The other thing is if you can be on mute, unless you're going to ask a question or if I call on you or you want to chime in, but just so we don't get background noise for the rest of it, if you can go ahead and mute yourselves. Great. All right. So today we're checking in with enrollment. We're checking in with a bunch of stuff, but I really wanted to start talking about the hiring process and as part of your enrollment process, because there's a couple of steps that you will need to do and a couple of things that are going to be happening over the next couple of weeks that you should be aware of, and that I'm going to give you some resources to help you with that. So the first thing I want to talk about is the email that I had already sent out. Most of you should have gotten about Praxis testing. You're going to hear this a lot from me, from other staff as you get more involved. The Praxis tests are the most important thing that you need to focus on right now, more than getting your transcripts, getting your resume. Those are all super important, but testing is the most important because not only you're not going to be able to get certified, but you have to have your testing done in order to get hired. And so we're going to be heading into the hiring season this spring. And my job, or one of my goals, is to get as many people as hired as possible before you start training. And so in order to do that, you have to have the tests done. Most of you have signed up for the Praxis II when you came in, which is great, and you need those. The other tests that we didn't require you to sign up for and before you came in was the Praxis Core. So the Praxis Core, or one of its qualifying tests, have to be done in order to be ready for hiring and be ready for certification. So in my email that I sent earlier, for the Praxis Core, you can use old ACT, SAT, or GRE scores. If you have a score of 24 on your ACT, CT, that qualifies. If you have a score of around 1100 for your SAT, it depends on when you took that test. If you took it earlier, like 20 years ago, you only need 1000. If you took it in the last 2 years, you need 1180, but around 1100 for qualifying SAT score, and 297 for the GRE score. And there's a link to those cut scores in my original email, and I'd be more than happy to get that out to people as well. Those, if you can dig them up, do so. If you have any kind of just paper copy from your old college days, please send them to me. I can let you know if that's valid or not. It is way better than trying to take that Praxis Core exam. And then the other thing is true, that if you can't find those scores, I would even consider retaking or taking for the first time the ACT or SAT. Both of those tests are cheaper. Both of them are more equitable in terms of diversity, in terms of like how people think and test, than the Praxis Core. The Praxis Core, you have to pass the cut score for the math, the reading, and the writing. Whereas with the ACT, it's a combined score 24. So if you're really great at reading and really great at social studies, but not so great at science and math, as long as you get a 24 score, you're good to go. Same thing with the SAT. If you get both the quantitative sides on the SAT, you're higher on one end than the other. As long as it's a combined score, that is helpful. And so you can use those and not have to think about the Praxis Core. So really focusing on that. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to jump on a Zoom call with people, answer emails around that, but you want to take those tests as soon as you can to give yourself, one, space so you can be hired, and two, space if you need to retake sections of it, you can retake, you can go. One of the questions I did get is, do you have to pay for retakes? Yes, for the Praxis Core, Praxis II, all of them. For the Praxis Core, if you pass certain sections, so say you pass the math and the reading, you only have to take the writing test. You don't have to take all 3 tests over again. But each testing instance for any test that you would take is additional costs. The other thing that I got as a question was testing resources, prep resources. So in my email, I put out a couple resources. So for the Praxis Core, Khan Academy, I I put a Khan Academy link. Khan Academy teamed up with ETS, which is the organization that runs the Praxis exam, to give them access to their questioning and logic and AI to build a not only study guide, but also it's a virtual study coach, basically, that targets your areas of weakness and then helps you build those up for each part of the Praxis core, which is great. And it's free. So you think about for those who have no Khan Academy and then their success with just building knowledge-based learning online and the ETS having all that knowledge of their database, it is the perfect resource for the Praxis core if you choose to do that route. Obviously, the ACT, SAT has a lot of different options as well. The links I put into my email are to their sites where they list a bunch of things. I think SAT has a Khan Academy as well as a bunch of other things. So there's a lot of resources around the Praxis core. The Praxis II, unfortunately, there's not a lot of study resources other than like the study books that you can find on Amazon, because those tests are particular for a certain subject. Like not everyone in the world takes Praxis exams. And then obviously not everyone takes specific, like I'm going to do elementary ed Praxis II. So the resources are kind of thin. If you're part of the Facebook group, ask questions in there. A lot of times residents pull together some resources or share books, or somebody knows how to, as a math tutor, and can help people, has been the best thing that I've seen people do for the Praxis II. It's just unfortunate that it's such a niche thing that it's just really the how-to books and help books that are online. ETS provides some of those things as well, but it's not as deep as you're going to take the ACT or SAT. So that's testing. Another thing I want to say around testing, one of the questions I got was they saw that the state of Maryland, for certification, you don't have to take the Praxis core if you have a 3.0 exemption, a 3.0 on your GPA, and that would exempt you from taking the Praxis core. I'm going to give you an overview of why you can't do that, as opposed to going to, but the reason that you can't do that is that the legislation hasn't changed for alternative search yet. It has changed for universities and colleges. It's been something in the works for about 2 years now. Colleges and university just got it last year. And so that's why it's widely advertised right now. But for alternative certification programs like ours, Teach for America, Urban Teachers, there's still some language that needs to be legislated on for us to have access to it. That access to the 3.0 exemption could come in a matter of a month or two, but it's been a 2-year legislative process. So it's not available to you yet. It could be available at any moment, but because we need to get people in a solid place to get working, we are sticking with the 2.75 and having to have the Praxis core. And that's why we're pushing a lot of these alternatives to the Praxis core. Believe me, me and our staff, if that legislation does pass tomorrow, you will probably hear us screaming at your homes, no matter where you are in the country, about that, because it's something we've been advocating for a while, and it would make things equitable, not only for people not to take tests, but also for people that don't have a 2.75. Right? There are a lot of people that want to teach but don't have a 2.75 GPA. That will allow them to take the test and not have the 2.75. So it would be equitable all around. Please, whatever cosmic universal prayer you can do that make that happen. We are hoping that it happens soon. Looking at a lot of transcripts that are coming through, most of you do have 3.0 or higher. And I think that would save you money, save you time, save you headache. So we are pushing, and we will let you know if that changes. I'm going to go over now a overview of how the hiring process goes. And I'm going to say 2 things that are true and that I will say throughout the whole process. And if you hold on to these 2 things that I'm saying to you, the hiring process is going to be great. Or not great, but it's going to be bearable. First thing is, if you've ever worked with a government agency and the bureaucracy and red tape and know that frustration, that is no different than working with any public school system, even the best of them. It is very difficult. There are a lot of things that do not make any sense, and I'll bring up an example of one in a minute. It's going to be frustrating. There's not going to be a lot of definites in the hiring process. You'll hear me say, as of right now, this is the situation. Um, it is frustrating. And it is frustrating for me on a daily basis, especially during hiring season, to work with the city. Not that they're not great people, not that the system is not a bad system. It is just the nature of what we're dealing with. So when things are going weird, remember that I said that, and that it is part of the process. The second thing that I will say to you that is also true, over the past 20 years that we've been in existence, we've been able to place 100% of our residents that pass the pre-service training each year. So I'll say it again. We've been able to place into positions 100% of people that pass the pre-service training each year with us. So, so with that said, each year there's something crazy that happens with hiring. Last year, obviously, it was COVID, and that had a weird effect. Years later, we've had political changes or leadership changes, and hiring season started late, or policy changes, and then people needed extra things to do to get hired. I don't know what it's going to be this year. I can say I'm preparing you now for the unknown in the hiring process. But you have a team of me and the staff, and I work in the offices when we're actually in there, but I also am virtually working with the human capital or human resources side of city schools. I actually met with them today before I talked to you guys. So you're in good hands. It is going to be a bumpy ride, but for those that are dedicated and make it through the process, you will find yourself in a position. So I will throw that out there. So what does that mean? So hiring starts, you've already started your hiring. You already done your application before you became enrolled. Once you've done the application, it is sitting in what's called a dormant state, or not being able to be seen. So it seems counterintuitive that we had to do this application. It's nothing, it's just going to sit there. But that's how they want it to be, so that when it does flip on, they can see it and we can go. Because when things start, it's going to move pretty fast. But there's a lot of just hurry up and wait at this point. So you've done your application. They're going to start reviewing it and telling me things that you'll need to tweak on the application possibly, and I will communicate that to you guys. One of the main things that they will probably communicate, and one of the things that don't make any sense, is that some of you, when you've completed your application, probably saw an email from City Schools to take what's called the EPI test. This test is basically a personality test. It's 100 questions. You have to sit and do it in one sitting. You have to complete that test in order for your application to be completed. It will not be completed unless you take that exam. It is not a pass-fail exam. It is just, they want you to do these 100 questions. They've been doing it for years, but it has to be done, and I will bug you until it's done. Now, what does it mean, the EPI test, is the question I get. It means absolutely nothing. Principals will not look at it. We do not look at it. I have never heard anything of the years that I've been doing this, anything that referred back to the EPI test at all. There's no score. They just need it in order for your application to be completed. Makes no sense, but that's how it is. So if you've gotten that email, please fill out that EPI test now, if you can. If you did not get that EPI test, you will need to go back into your application, and there's a section where it has like the little menu items. At the bottom, there's a space for email. If you click that email thing, it has a list of all the stuff that the city sent to you, and the EPI test will be on that. If you have any questions about the EPI test, please email me, and I can walk you through it either over a Zoom call or on a call. But that is something that they're going to ask you to do. So once you've completed your application, completed your uh, EPI test, your application is going to just sit there dormant until two things happen. The hiring season starts, which last year they started early. They started at the end of March. The latest they've started was the end of May. But usually it's the end of April, beginning of May is when it starts. So hiring season has to start, and you have to have your Praxis Core and Praxis II completed. Once those are completed, and that season starts, they will automatically flip the switch on your application, and it is visible. So a couple things happen when your application is visible. First thing is that principals can see and access your information that you put in and your resume and things of that nature. They can type in, I need an elementary ed teacher. It'll pop up, it'll say, oh, here are some BCTR teachers. And then they can go through and they can contact you directly, which is awesome. Second thing that will happen is that you can actually go in and contact if you want to take your job search a little more aggressive. And we'll give you tools on interviewing and talking with teachers as we get principals as we get going. But you can actually contact schools when you see positions. Hey, I am Joe Schmo, Jane Doe. I saw that you had an ad for a special ed teacher. I am with BCTR special ed, and you can just go in, they can pull you up and say, oh, great, we can do an interview. They'll probably set up they've been doing Zoom interviews. You could have an interview that day. The most often way people get jobs through BCTR is through hiring fairs. So City Schools throws a few hiring fairs during the hiring season. Last year, they did them virtually. Usually they're in a school. But the hiring fairs, they get all the schools that need positions, and they have all the teachers. They invite you if you're in a hireable, which means you've done your Praxis test and your application's complete, and they invite you to come to them. Usually you get offers on the spot at these hiring fairs. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But it is a great place because you can just go from interview to interview to interview really quick. And it's a great way to just get comfortable with interviewing, but also it is a great place to just actually land positions or offers. And so there's a bunch of resources. So when that happens, all that stuff starts flooding, and you can call, principals may be calling you, you'll get things to go to job fairs and things of that nature. A couple of things about once you're in the hireable position, there's a couple of things that we ask you to do. When you get an offer, we ask that you talk to us about that offer first. So one of the things that happens, and it's exciting during job fairs, is you may get an offer on the spot from a principal. And you may say, hey, I'm going to go for it. We ask you to just meet with us first. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we want to make sure that it's a great fit for you and school-wise. There are a lot of great schools in Baltimore City, and not all of them are great for first-year teachers. And so we want to give you as much information that we have. So usually what I try to do is I have like a little database of like our residents, current and alumni, and they kind of we've gotten information from them about the schools that they teach at. The coaches are in the schools on a regular basis. And I can give you information about a school where I can say, a common thing is that you'll get offers from alternative schools. Alternative schools are great schools, but some of these schools require you to have more than just teaching training. They also, you'll need some social service training as well, and are not great for first-year teachers. You may have a background in that, but that's a conversation that we need to have in order for it to find out it's a good fit. So the training is going to be very tough. Their first year as a teacher is going to be really tough. We want to make sure that you're in the right fit. And we'll talk more about school climate and school community and things of that nature. But we want you to know that we want to help you navigate schools and school communities. So we ask that, and this is not the last time that you'll hear me say that. The other thing is that we will be helping you just with the interview process and things of that nature, through just a series of meetings like this and orientation and things of that nature. Once you are offered a position, they are going to send you an email called the intent to hire. And you respond to it, you just click on it and kind of do a digital signature that you're going to work at that school. The other reason why we asked you to talk to us is that we want to try to get you in the best communities, because once you sign that intent to hire form, you have to be at that school for the 2 years that you're a resident with us. You can't change at that point. You can't do anything different. You have to be at that school. And so we want to navigate that, help you navigate that before you sign. For us, the most important play is to get you into a right space. From our perspective, we don't worry so much about getting you placed, but we worry about getting you placed in the right spot. And so it may seem counterintuitive to someone that's coming to teaching from maybe from another career, or just really has some anxiety about getting a job, and we understand that. But we're also looking out for your whole 2-year and career as well. So, if we push back on choices, just know that it's not out of like, we don't want you to teach. We want you to be in a great situation, and we want to look out for you. All right, one more thing before we go into some questions. The last thing is resume. So a lot of you have already uploaded resumes into your application. One of the tasks in the enrollment is resume, and some of you have put resumes in there. So there's a couple things that I'm going to be sending out probably tomorrow to the whole 2021 cohort to help them with resumes. The first one is, and you probably saw this in, and I'm going to share my screen real quick, is we have a resume template. Now, you may have seen this when you did your enrollment. I'm sending out an updated one because I did meet with city schools, human resources, human capital this morning, and they wanted to add a couple things. So basically, what you want to do is you want to use this template if you have not already. So the key things is that you want to make sure that you have the letterhead, and kind of use this format. It doesn't have to be exact, but we do want you to put this information where under education, the first thing you have is the Baltimore City Teaching Residency and this blurb that we put under it about what you're going to be taught in this year. Most principals understand that, and it's good for them to see that right off the bat. Most principals aren't going to go through your whole resume, especially once they understand that you're BCTR, and a lot of our residents don't come from education. They may have a very different background, but they are well aware of the training and the quality of the training that come and the residents that come through. So this is why we put that format this way. Then you're going to put any other training, master's degree, bachelor's degree. The one thing that human capital wanted us to do is add that they want to know the year that you're conferred on that particular degree, and they want to know the GPA. Reason for that is that when they're doing applications and looking for BCTR people, they have a hard time sometimes putting in what your school conferred dates are and degrees, because we turn in your transcripts once you finish PST, and they understand that, but they don't have a copy of it. So this is a way for them to have that information. One of the ways that they need it is that if you have a master's or doctorate degree, you are qualified for a pay increase in salary bands. And I'll talk about salary bands in a little bit. So that's something that you'll want to put in. And then under here, we changed this a little bit to relevant experience and then career experience. So we did this for a lot of our career changers, especially that have a lot of different experience that may not be in education. And one of the questions we used to get was, hey, I have all this experience, but like my relevant experience is kind of choppy and I don't want to show gaps in my resume. So this is a way to put your relevant experience. So say you did sales for most of your life, but you did some volunteering and you did Big Sisters, Big Brothers program part-time somewhere. You can list this here, and it doesn't matter where the pay gap, the date gaps are, because underneath we have career experience, and you can show your most recent jobs and where you've been, so that it's a way to show you have some experience if you have some relevant experience, and show some of your career experience that you have been working consistently. So I'm going to send out this new one out today. The other thing that I'm going to send out, tomorrow morning, is with our, when you came through the finalist stage, there was a guideline for resumes that, although good, it was a little wordy. So this is the checklist that our team is going to go through when we go through your resumes. Basically, it is just, we're going to give you this checklist so you can go through the checklist yourself and say, hey, my resume is meeting all these things, and it should be good to go. When we do a review of your resume, we'll have like little comments next to each checklist, and we'll just send you the same checklist back saying, yep, you're good to go, or hey, can you change this one thing in your resume? And then go from there. So I think this is going to be an easier way for us to communicate changes to you and for you to see exactly what you need without being overwhelmed with all, the language of it. So both of those will get sent out to you guys. If you start uploading your resumes, we're going to start going through them, and hopefully this week, but into the whole process of before hiring season, so that your resume is looking great and it's very visible and accessible to principals and school staff. Outside of that, I'm looking at a couple of questions here that people turned in. Talked about 3.0, talked about testing prep. Another question that I got was material to prepare for PST, which is a great question. So there's going to be a couple of things outside of just like the most important of getting the test done, and that's kind of administrative. But there's some more mindset things that will come out. The first one is going to be a enrollment course that we're going to send out to you guys when it's ready in the next week or so. It is a 20-hour course. It is self-paced, self-correcting tests, but it kind of goes through a bunch of the steps at your own pace of what the training is going to be. And I will have another session about the enrollment course when we get to that time. The other thing is that most of you know that BCTR is parent organization is TNTP. And TNTP is a education management organization. We do teacher trainings, we do policy work, we do work with building, equitable systems in education, as well as data. And another thing that we do is publish studies around education. So if you go to the TNTP site, and when we get to the question site, I will drop into the chat a link to the site. But we've done a couple of really great studies, and reading those will help you get into the mindset and kind of understand the world of education a little bit better from a lot of different perspectives. The last study that we did, called the Opportunity Myth, was really a study done from students' perspective. And it really talks about what they were promised as in education, what they found out when they get to college, what they're actually thinking in class. So this study went to 4 different districts, some urban, some rural, and did a study for a year where they did question students in their classroom in the day about, hey, what are you learning? How's this making you feel? All these things. And, did a qualitative and quantitative study on that research. To make a long story short, the things that they found out, the resources that kids need, and to help them shorten this gap between career and college from what they're taught in school are, engaging lessons, high expectations, and grade appropriate assignments. These are resources that are not expensive. They are teacher dependent. They're within your reach. And so that will be a great way for you to kind of get into the mindset, because we'll talk a lot about that during pre-service training, about why those things are important and how they make a huge difference in your classroom and how practically to implement that. So I will put that in the chat when we get to more question time. Other than that, the other question I had was job turnaround. So how does the jobs work? So I talked a little bit about the intent to hire form. So once you sign the intent to hire form, we have a conversation. This is a great school for you. You're excited. You sign the intent for hire. You're at that school, and say we do this in May. Once that's done, you will be slated to teach at that school. With the understanding that you'll pass pre-service training and go forward. You pass pre-service training, you will be invited to do new teacher training with City. So all new teachers in the city do a new teacher institute after PST. It's in August. And you will be with all their new teachers from traditional programs, Teach for America, and all over the city. And they'll go over all your information that you're going to be using, tools in the classroom, policies, and all those things, the union and things of that nature. And then at that point, after you've done New Teacher Institute, your principal is going to be your main contact. You've been dealing with us, you'll have dealt with us the majority of that time. At that point, you're becoming an official employee of City Schools. So City Schools is going to be your employer. As a teacher, you will have all the same benefits as a teacher that is on a standard certification. Same salary, same benefits, same access to all those things. It's not different. I talked about salary a little bit and pay increases. Baltimore does salary bands. So they don't negotiate salaries. If you fall in this band, then that's your salary. So for the bottom of the band for teachers is bachelor's degree with no experience. So last year, all contracts for teachers that were there was $50,556. It goes up a little bit each year. It's probably 51 this year, but that is if you have no experience and you have a bachelor's degree. And then it goes up from there if you have some private school experience, not subbing. They won't count that. They won't count paraprofessional. They won't count long-term subs. If you've had a teacher of record, and most of the time it's in a private school, Catholic school or some nature, your salary can go up from there. But that is the base. So after that, you're really going to be reporting to your principal. That is going to be the majority of your time. So City Schools is going to be your employer. Our partnership with City Schools is that as they're your employer, we're your certification body. So anything that has to do with certification, coursework, testing, and things of that nature, we are going to be the group that helps you get your certification done. And then anything that is employment related, benefits, grievances, pay, things of that nature will be with City Schools. And so it will be a dual partnership at that point after that New Teacher Institute. And then obviously a lot of our coaches and staff have been teachers in Baltimore City, so they can help you navigate some of those things. But a lot of those things we can just advocate for you. We won't be able to actually make things happen in your employment that are not certification related. So like when you sign that contract, basically you're signing to that principal being your training school for the 2 years that you're with us. And I think that was it for some of the questions that I had. I'll take a second look. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions about anything I've talked about or anything that I didn't talk about? I know I talked for a while. So I am very interested to hear if you guys have anything to say. I didn't see anything in the chat either. But let's open it up. Charles, I see your hand is up.
Hey, hi everybody. I do have a question about the Praxis II. I might even send you the one that's overview, right? I know I understand the core, but I started trying to prep for that Praxis II, and it does seem like it's like a jargon thing. Like it's a lot of like as if I already had experience teaching. Like some of the questions were really jargon like okay, this kind of teaching approach, that kind of teaching approach, and
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how I was, it would be great if I knew that. I don't know it. I don't, and then now you're saying there's no study guide for real. So
Yes.
how do you, I mean, I just feel like I'm just going into a pretty bad situation. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
That's a great question. So, and I'm glad you brought that up. So there are two Praxis 2 exams. There is a content exam, which I think we put through. That shouldn't have a lot of teacher jargon in it. Maybe the elementary ed does, but the content exams are really around content. So like the chemistry exam should be mostly chemistry. The math is mostly math. There may be some teachery jargon, but it really is an exam for your content. I would check and see if the one that you're studying for is the PLT. If that is the case, let me know and I will help you get that switched to the content exam. Because the PLT you will have to take, but you don't have to take it until your second year, because then you'll learn a lot of the teacher jargon. And that test is actually really easy to pass once you've kind of had some training. But that's what it sounds like to me, Charles. Let me know when you look at it, or if you want to just send me your registration and I can tell you right away what's happening with it. Karen, you had something? And then after Karen, Sierra.
Yeah, that they had a numbers like the 7,000s or the 5,000s for the Praxis II. Is that that was like the series or something?
It depends on what Praxis 2 you have. So let me pull up.
Because I think mine said the 7,000s, but I've actually been studying the content. So I did find some study material for the content of Praxis 2 content, like you were saying.
Yep, the Praxis.
So I hope I registered for the right one. I mean, I sent it back to you guys, so I think I did.
Yeah, I've been checking them as they come in, and for the most part, there's only seen one or two people that had the wrong exams that I've talked to.
Okay.
I'll continue to check. If you're worried about, just send me an email and I will check it again and just confirm that for you.
Yeah, and I'll probably send you an email about the EPI because I never got anything about it either because I never applied for a job. I think you said that kind of triggered them sending it to you, but there were no 2021 jobs left when I went to apply. Right, I think it said on the paperwork it had to be a school year 2021.
Yes.
And I didn't see any more. So.
Yes. So if you go back in, it is not a specific job that you're applying for. They call it a job, but it's a job pool. So if you go in, you should find your job pool. So if you're elementary ed, there'll be an elementary ed job pool, and that will trigger your EPI. And yeah, send me any of that information over, and then I will take a look at it.
Okay.
Let's go Sierra and then Stacy Royal after Sierra. And then after Stacy,
thank you,
Harold. Yeah, sure.
So just a question about the resume. So if we are like currently in education, do we need to break up our resume in that way?
No, it is really helpful to like the main things that for the resume are using the template with the letterhead, using the language we put in for BCTR, and then keeping it a page and a half. So if you have a really long resume, you're going to have to edit, and then keeping the font simple and average size, not too big, not too small. That's the key. So if you have a different way of doing your education, or a different way of doing your work experience that you feel more comfortable with, that's fine. Just kind of do it in that format of like making sure that it's clean and short.
Okay, and then my other question is, do you all know the dates of pre-service training?
Yeah, that's a great question. So pre-service training will be the end of June. So we usually meet in a high school that does not have summer school, which means that we don't know the exact date until they declare when summer school starts. But for the past 5 years, it's always been the last week of June is when we start PST. The day may be different, like the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But if you're making plans, it is usually that last week in June and goes to the first Friday in August. So about 6 weeks that time. If there's any changes, we'll know in a couple of months, but we won't know like the exact PST date until probably March, end of March. And Stacy, then Harold.
Yes, hi. Now my question was, I'm already a Baltimore City employee.
Mhm.
I'm a substitute teacher.
Mhm.
I also was a temporary support staff until they eliminated that position. So when I go in to apply for a teacher position, they automatically tell me I'm not qualified.
Mhm. All right. So a couple of things that I can think of, and if none of this works, we can set up a time on Zoom to kind of go through it together. One of the things, if you go back to your application, there should be a section when you do your application that you can mark off part of BCTR or Teach for America. If you click that, that will set your application into a different mode. It will send it to the alternative cert. And so, which means a couple of things. You're not required to have a transcript, and you are put in that dormant state of being in an alternative cert program because you're going to be working towards certification. That is the first thing. So when you enrolled, there was that checklist of how to go through the application. I would go through that, or if you don't have it, just let me know. I'll send you that and go through it with your application and see how you can change it so that it's going from a current employee into as a substitute or whatever to being a certification candidate. And that should trigger a lot of different things for you.
Okay.
All right, I have a question.
Oh, 1 second. If there's, I had Harold, and then we'll take your question.
All right.
And then Alexandra, I see your hand up as well.
Two quick questions. First one, I took the Praxis II about a month ago, and I think I already exchanged some communications with you via email. I still haven't been able to get any information from the Praxis page. Every time I check in, no scores are available yet, and I was wondering if there's anything that you suggest I should do. That's one. And number two is I can take as many of the tests in addition to the Praxis score, meaning the ACT and also the SAT test, and then I can pick the best score that I get, or I have to pick one.
No, I mean, if you have the resources to do as many tests and you have options, I would say go for it. You can take as many. You can take Praxis Core, GRE, ACT, SAT, all of them, and turn in. But you just need one qualifying score on any of those tests to be eligible.
All right. And regarding the Praxis II score, what do I do to get?
Yeah, so they're running behind
COVID.
Okay. So I am slowly getting trickle scores in from you guys. You will probably get them before I get them. So I'm trying to keep a track of them. But if you do get your scores, then please send them to me so that I have them. That's the best way. And actually, your score that they give you looks prettier than the one that I get. And so I always like putting those in your files as opposed to the little data readout that I get. So if you get those scores, be patient with them. They are, working on it. And thanks, Zach. I see that it's January 15th. So it depends on the test. It depends on where they're at. Some tests take a little longer. So give it a little bit and go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Feliza and then Kyra.
All right. My question is regarding the score, the qualifying score for the Praxis II. As you said that like, and I have also read about the ACT, they have like 24 is their qualifying score. I couldn't find even in Google that what is the qualifying score for the Praxis. I guess they have kind of percentile method, or I'm not sure what is it, because in 120, like 120 questions, where I found the passing score is like 156. What does that mean?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the chat a little link. This is also in my email, and I want to share my screen real quick with everyone. And then also to Stacy, I'll get to your question in a second as well. Where is it? All right, so that link that I sent you guys is this page here. Can you guys see where it says license testing requirements? So if you go to the top, it has Maryland State testing requirements. As you scroll down, it gives you the cut scores. Well, first of all, here is the testing. So for SAT scores, ACT, GRE. And then here, these are the qualifying scores for the parts of the Praxis core. As you go down, if you click into each of these things, if you're taking the early childhood tests, you'll see the early childhood test, the 50-25, your score that you have to get is this 156.
So what is the, like, what is, how do they take out this score? Because out of 120 questions, I couldn't understand that how one.
I don't know. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know how many questions that is for each test. And it changes, honestly. I'm
talking about the 50-25 because I am preparing for that. And they have only 120 questions. And that's where I couldn't understand that. How come this 156 score is there? Like, is it a kind of percentage, a percentile thing?
It is their proprietary knowledge. So my guess is that some questions are weighted higher than others. They do not share that with the public on how they grade them. You can, after taking a test, request your scoring, and you can figure it out from that. But that is the only way that you're going to know. And they constantly change it. So there's no way that I can say, or anyone can say, yes, if you get this many questions right, that is it. Yeah, so that's how they stay in business and make the money. And real quick, before I get to Kyra's question, I talked about this earlier. The 3.0 is available to higher institution, colleges and university. It will be available to alternative certs, but they're still going through legislation. So that is a new thing, the 3.0, instead of taking the Praxis core, it is working its way through legislation. It just hasn't hit programs like ours yet. So you still need to take the Praxis core or one of the qualifying scores as of yet. You'll see a lot of advertising for it on ETS site because most colleges can access it, but not everyone can at this point, unfortunately. And we will let you know as soon as that happens.
All right.
And then Kyra Butler.
I just had a question about the weekly enrollment updates emails that we get. When it says needs site review, is that for us to do or for your end to do?
That's for our end to do. So like, I give you an example is that a lot of you have put in resumes. We just haven't reviewed them yet. So once we start reviewing them and they're good to go, we'll check like, hey, that's good to go. There was one weird glitch on there where they were asking us the site to review your social security, but we don't have access to that because that's in a firewall as it should be under lock and key. And so I'm like, I can't get access to this. So how do I can't review it. So they're going to make that update. So when you update it, they'll automatically say this person did the thing. And same thing, like, I don't know if you changed your contact information or not. I don't, like if you change your address, I don't know if that was the old address or new address. So there's a couple of things that they're going to have that change automatically, but things like resume, transcripts, testing, we will click when we get that stuff. I have been updating transcripts when I get them, testing when I get them, any of the other stuff. Resume is the new one that we're going to start this week. So if you have a question about it, just email me and let me know. If I will take a look, and if I overlook something, I can correct it pretty quick.
Okay, great.
I see. Are we supposed to be getting weekly enrollment updates? Yes, there should be an email getting to you from Salesforce that comes and says, hey, these are your tasks and this is where you're at on the task. If you're not getting that, please email me. I can have the tech team look into why you're not getting it. Sometimes it goes to your spam folder, but it should be emailing you the updates. Should we resubmit our resume to Baltimore schools? Yes. So I would wait until we approve your resume and you get your feedback on the resume, and then reload it up to the site. That is going to be the best way, and it's fine. You can just reload it up there. It's dormant anyway, so there's no. It's not like anyone's looking at it right now. We just needed it in there to get your application in. There's a question here. If we're taking the ACT, do we need to take it with or without writing? You do not need to take the writing. No writing. Don't pay for the writing. They're just going to do math, social studies, science, reading, the other ones. So don't pay for the writing. I sent my transcripts in December, but my weekly says it's incomplete. Harold, let me look into that. Send me a separate email, and then I will look into that. I think I remember seeing your email, and that might be just that I didn't click it in the Salesforce. But send me an email, and I'll take a look this week. Any other questions as we're closing out? Shane, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So I am currently subbing. So I have like the day-to-day sub experience, but I also have that I did a long-term from August until December teaching 5th grade, and I'm currently doing a long-term until June teaching 1st grade. So should those be separate because I have separate reporting principles and things, or should I include that all under one thing? How should I do that?
Maybe keep them separate so that you can kind of see some diversity in what you're doing. That would be great. Yeah, I mean, once you start pulling it in, if it looks like it's consistent and has a good flow, then yeah. The key thing is try to get as much information on there as possible without being wordy and without it going. The principals aren't going to honestly look past page 1 if they look at the content of your resume at all, to be honest with you. Like when the season gets towards the end, principals get a little desperate because they want to fill all their positions. And a lot of times they're like, oh, this person's BCTR and they're learning how to teach English. Oh, that's fine. Like I know they'll have a coach and you will figure it out, like they'll go through. But it is always good to have a great resume. But you need to feel good about the way it looks and how it flows, and be able to talk about it when you do an interview. Stacy, if you haven't been getting the emails, just email me because this chat's going to go away after I close this out. Just email me and I will look into that for you. Any other questions about anything? It doesn't have to be about enrollment.
Real quick.
Yeah, sure.
So I registered and took the Praxis 2, 78, 11, 12, so on for elementary. And I understand the testing out of the Praxis 1, blah, blah, blah. But I did see on the Maryland website or on the ETS website, the teaching reading elementary 5205 is a requirement that wasn't listed. Do I need to take it? It wasn't listed on the BCTR stuff.
Right. Yes. So that's a great question. So there are entrance exams and exit exams. So entrance exams, your subject content, Praxis core. There will be exit exams. So as I was talking to Charles about earlier, there's a pedagogy test for your Praxis 2. It's called the Praxis 2, but it's a pedagogy test. It has it's a testing your knowledge of teaching. You don't have to take that until your 2nd year. If you're elementary, special ed, early childhood, you have to take what's called the TREE, teaching and reading exam, which I think you saw, Zachary. That's a 2nd year exam. If you are special ed, there's a special ed exam that is not until your second year. So that's some of the things that I will work with you during your second year. There's some portfolio stuff that you'll need to do in your second year to exit the program, but we're just trying to get you into the program. We don't want to bog you down with all the stuff and overwhelm you. We just want to overwhelm you with the 2 tests that you actually need to do.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You may not be able to answer this, but I registered for the ACT and I registered for it with writing. You know, if there's a way to take that part off the test, do I just need to contact the ACT to do that?
You contact them. I don't think they're going to let you take it off, but they may. I don't know. When my sons took the ACT, they took it with writing, and then the next time they didn't. But if I remember correctly, they were pretty like, "Oh, you paid," you know, kind of thing. So, but ask them. It never hurts to ask.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Going once for questions, twice. Beg for mercy. 3 times. All right. So it is great talking to everyone. I'm always excited to see you guys. Like I said, currently right now we have almost 90 people registered. I am recording this. I'm going to put this out in the recording. I'm also going to send out in the email with this recording the new template, the resume checklist. I will throw in some of those links like that I put in the email for all the testing, the cut score thing. And then you can respond to that email with any questions that we talked about, like you're not getting certain emails or you thought you had your transcript in, things of that nature. We will work through from there. But I'm excited to get you guys ready for hiring. That is going to be a fun season to work through getting hired. Like I said at the beginning, it is going to be frustrating. It's just going to be frustrating. And I want to put that out there right now because people coming into it's like, why is this not more efficient? It is what it is. But the second thing is that over the 20 years that we've been doing this, we've been able to place 100% of people that have passed the pre-service training. So those 2 things don't seem like they should work, but they have for the past 20 years. They will continue. They have worked even through the pandemic. And we'll talk more about pandemic stuff and training. If you had a welcome call with me, we've talked a little bit about it. But stay tuned. Just overview. Right now, we're planning on doing all virtual like we did last year. And if you had a welcome call, you understand a little bit of what that looked like. We would love to be in person. But we want everyone to be safe. We want the kids to be safe. And we want to follow all the guidelines on the state and national level. And so if the opportunities arise for us to do in person safely, either, you know, in some of the meetings that we have coming up or pre-service training or some kind of hybrid, we will let you know. But right now we are going to go with virtual until further notice. All right. Look out for more information. Yeah, sure. Look out for more information from me. There'll be some more sessions coming up. One will be about the enrollment course that I talked about. And we'll go from there. All right. And then if you haven't signed up for a welcome call with me, please do so or email me if like the times don't work for you. We'll set up something different. But please communicate with us any issues that you have. And I will talk to you guys soon. All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.